couple of questions because I heard that you started a new job actually. So if you could tell me a little about that, that would be nice.
Actually, sure. I just started last week. So really just started. So I work for a pharmaceutical company, and I am the director of alliance management and strategic initiatives. So I work with our partners, global partners. We are a company that makes anti-infectives, so antibiotics, and a lot of our products are already distributed and manufactured and sold in the US. They've been the regulatory approvals, everything's happened in the US. Now we're working on getting them into other countries so that they can be used, because a lot of these are for acute care, meaning emergency medication. And so we want to make them available globally.
Oh, okay. So what's your position in that entire process?
So I manage the partnerships with our global partners. So what happens is we work with, in pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of regulatory agencies, companies that, like government companies that regulate what can be made, how it's made, checking the quality. It's not like other products. It's a very, very highly regulated industry because they want to make sure that everything is safe and that there's no issues, and it's made the right way. Because this could have a very big impact on people, right? So, so we work with the regulatory agency in the US, but now to launch in other countries, we have to work with their local people, local teams there that know the regulatory requirements for that country.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not going to be exactly the same. Every country has different guidelines. So we have partners. So I manage the relationship with the partners. I work with them to get our approvals.
Oh, okay. And what countries do you work with mainly?
So it's global. Right now, I just started a project and I'm going to be working with the Middle East, North Africa, and the other partners that I'm currently involved with are in Italy. Where else? A lot of the European countries too.
Oh, okay. And what's really different about this job than your previous job, and where was that?
Sure. So the other, my previous position, I was working, it was a space where it was a company that actually made the medications. So we worked with a lot of the other larger pharma companies that needed a place to come to do their research and development, and then make the product large scale. So what happens is many companies have a number of products, but they won't have the capacity to make everything. There's no way they may file for it, they may get approval for it, but they can't manage making everything that's in their portfolio, right? So, people buy from different companies. So, well, what we did, my previous position is we actually would work with them, with the companies that got the approval. We would make the product and then give it back to them to sell. So we were doing a lot of the manufacturing, the packaging, a lot of the testing. So in that role, I worked with local partners. Like I worked with a lot of the larger pharma companies, and I worked to help them manage their project, like their development project. They wanted to figure out, hey, we have this, it's almost like a recipe, right? They have a way to make the medication. Now we have to test it, make it that way, and then test it and see, does it meet all the guidelines? Does it dissolve the right way? Does it, is the packaging okay? Like, is it leaking? Is it all that gets tested, right? So I would be working with the partners here to do that. But my new role is not working with other pharma companies that make things. It's actually more global, about launching into other countries.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that can be like really tough because one thing goes wrong and like there's a lot of stake that the company has.
Yeah.
So it's the same company, you're just in a different position now?
No, I changed companies completely.
Oh, okay.
Different company.
So, going back to your college and what degree you got, how did that like affect where you chose to take your career path?
So my degree is in the pharmaceutical sciences. Initially, I started off with a very traditional path, like people that come out of with that degree would go into like a clinical role.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I was more science-based and I did a lot of the clinical kind of roles.
Yeah.
I did internships in hospitals. I worked in, for pharmacies. And so those were my roles. As my career progressed, I kind of got away from the more scientific side and more on the business side. And so if you look at where I am now, there are certain people that have pharmaceutical degrees or pharmacy degrees that do this, but it's usually more people that have business degrees that end up doing what I do. But I ended up there, not a straight path. I took a lot of different positions and I got to where I am now.
Is that more because of your interest or your expertise or
Uh, Probably both. I think I enjoy working with clients and I'm very, comfortable with relationship management. And so um, I didn't necessarily need to be in a lab and, working on the research part of it. And so my interests have always been more on the business side, even though I didn't pursue any degree in business. But I ended up kind of going in that direction and my skills and my expertise kind of aligned very well with that.
oh, okay, that's good. How exactly did you choose pharmacy out of all these different options when you get out of high school? How did you choose that?
So that's a good question. So when I was in high school, I did very well in the sciences and math. And so I was looking for a career where I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to med school. So initially I was thinking med school, but then I didn't know if I wanted to do to be a physician in that setting, right? And it's a long process. So then I started looking at other options. I was looking at optometry to go, to become like an eye doctor. I was looking at other allied health sciences.
Mm.
And then my guidance counselor actually had suggested, he's like, you really like chemistry. You're very good in a lot of these fields, the math and the science, and it's a good combination. And have you ever considered pharmacy? And so I started looking into it and then saw that there were a couple of good schools. And I ended up going to Rutgers University, and they had one of the top pharmacy programs in the country at the time. And so I was like, okay, let me try applying. And I ended up getting in to that program. And so I was like, let me start here.
Yeah,
If I don't like it, I can switch out. But then I just ended up graduating and finishing.
that's really nice. Um, I want to change tracks a little bit. I've
Mhm.
heard a lot about JuiceTank and what you and your husband did. And so if you could tell me a little bit about that and what really happened with that.
Sure. So JuiceTank was a co-working incubator. So an incubator for startups where they can come there instead of working alone or working, because a lot of startups start with just a couple of people, right? And so they don't necessarily need a big office. They don't need a lot of the typical office space, right? And sometimes it's one person, right? And so they're working alone at home, trying to launch an idea. It's a very that's a hard thing to do, right? To be alone. Especially if you're first time, you may not have the connections, you may not know what to do. So we started this co-working space, and it was an incubator where people could collaborate and work with each other. Say you're working on an idea, but you need somebody who has marketing expertise.
Mhm.
Sometimes, there were so many different companies there that they were helping each other. Like one would be like, hey, I just launched a marketing company. I can help you. I just launched a web development. I can help you with your website. Maybe you can help me with this. And so there was a lot of collaboration. So we started this, and it was a nice space. We did a lot of networking events. We did a lot of training for people, different workshops, so that they can, kind of advance their ideas. If they started it could be in technology, it could be in healthcare, lots of connections made. And it did really well. We started a meetup group. We had almost 6,000 members that would come, that were part of the network, and they would come to different events. And we had a very large space there, so we could host large events there. I actually launched a women's networking group there too, and that grew to about 700 women.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of people.
It was great. And we did, and, women entrepreneurs sometimes, especially at that time, 2010, 15, around then, women entrepreneurs were not as active in a lot of the networking events that we would go to. We would host events, and we wouldn't see a lot of women coming to that, especially in technology, just because a lot of women weren't into some of the STEM fields at the time. I mean, it's always changing, it's evolving. And so that was a great way to get women to interact with each other. And we had really powerful executive women come in and do workshops with other women that were starting up. And it was a good networking group that we established there.
That's actually really great.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and we made some amazing contacts, and we're still in touch with a lot of the people that we met. And it's always good to network, and you may even find your mentors there, right? People that have done things before you, and so instead of you recreating the wheel and trying to make mistakes that people have learned from, it's great to just bounce ideas off of them, or have them kind of guide you a little bit so that you're not making the same mistakes that they made. And you can kind of progress even quicker.
That's great. You guys were giving them the resources that they really needed to really launch what they were doing, which is really important when you're starting your own business. You don't know what you're doing at all. But this was during the time where you were doing your other job as well?
So I had left my position, and then I was working JuiceTank. I was active in JuiceTank for probably about 2 to 3 years. And then one of the companies that was in JuiceTank had hired me to come in initially as a consultant. Mm-hmm. It was a healthcare IT company, and they were looking for somebody with healthcare experience that could help manage some of the clients. They were getting big projects with a lot of the bigger pharma companies. So they were looking for somebody who understood that language and the lingo and can communicate with them. And so I was initially hired just to do, I started part-time and I was still working with JuiceTank and then working there. And then it just kept getting more and more, and I ended up working there basically full-time. But that was a great learning experience for me, because that was probably the turn in my career, because now I was becoming a little bit more tech savvy, and I learned about project management. And so that gave me the background to then shift my career from clinical and then more onto the business side. And I got involved. That helped me get my next role in actually project management for product development.
Wow. So I guess giving other people resources also gave you a different type of exposure too.
Yes. Yeah. And you never know, right? Any experience. I was able to kind of connect the dots between my scientific experience and now the project management, and I had some business development experience. All that came together, and I was able to get this new role. And it kind of changed the way my resume looked. right? Like my experiences were very different from other people who had only scientific experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important to be like well-rounded like that, not just stick to one thing and just continuously do that. It's also good to explore other fields as well, which is like really great that you did that. Um, so as we wrap up, so now that you've had so much experience and exposure to different types of fields, how do you think that one should really go about, like not really just choosing what they want to do, but how to really flourish in that one field that they choose?
So I think you kind of said it before. There's no reason to feel that because I've decided this major and this is what I'm doing, that you only have to stick to that. It's very good to have broad experience. You may not even get the experience. Maybe it's just talking to people, networking with other people. You don't want to be so narrow-minded or narrow-focused that you become so niche in one field that you don't have the breadth of knowledge of other industries. Because sometimes it doesn't even matter what you major in, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter. Your skills can translate into other industries, and you may bring a perspective to a different industry based on your experience and the schooling you had. It may not be necessary. The role that I had before, I was probably only one of 2 or 3 pharmacists there. It was a pharmaceutical industry, but a lot of people had very different experience. And my perspective was so different because a lot of them had been in the industry from the beginning of their career. I came in with experience from all different facets. And I think that just made me, it gave me a different perspective, different way to approach problems and issues that came up. And I was able to rise the ranks probably a lot quicker than them just because of not having only one vision and one way of doing things.
Yeah. Well, it's really good advice to not just stick to one thing, not just limit yourself to one particular thing just because you're good at it. Also just broaden your experiences and your horizon.
Yeah, and it could be, you don't even necessarily need to take different jobs, but if you talk to different people, read, you listen to other people's stories, and just make sure that you're kind of well versed in all different spaces. That really helps.
Yeah. You also said networking. I feel like that's also a very big thing that you mentioned. And I always hear you talking about networking with different people. I know you're very big on that, which is great because just talking to other people can give you so much insight into different types.
Absolutely. And, I tell young people all the time, and even in my case, I ended up getting a couple other positions. In my last company, I had gotten a very good promotion, and it was never a position that was like open to other people. They just created the role for me, and that was because of my networking and my connections with a new president that came on. And he was like, you know what, when I'm talking to you, I feel like I could use your expertise in a different position. And so I ended up getting a really good promotion because of that. So I really believe that even when you're looking for internships, when you're looking for your first job or anything like that, like your contacts can help you get to a position so much quicker than just being one of the crowd trying to, interview and get, like, if you look online now, so many people apply for that same one position.
Yeah.
For this current role, I worked with a recruiter, and she kind of moved my resume up and said, here's a person I highly recommend. And, they were actually going to offer the job to somebody else until I came along and they interviewed me, and then they gave me the position, right? And they've been interviewing for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's very important to be like unique. That's how you can stand out, really make your influence on the people that are hiring you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not just for the like corporate world, I guess. I feel like that's like everywhere, not just in your
Everywhere.
job career, like
Absolutely.
everywhere that you go.
So, I mean, I'm glad you're doing this in like public speaking, and because I'll tell you, the few things that will make you stand out are communicating well. Um, I think another one that I believe is really important is something called EQ. You know, you have IQ, but
Yeah.
EQ is emotional quotient, that you can connect with people. You're able to really understand their perspective, right? You put yourself in their shoes and work with them. And you know, just being able to write well, read well, you know, understand and communicate. Communications is going to be the biggest differentiator. You
Yeah.
could be as smart as anything, but if you cannot relay your information to other people or make it clear, sometimes a person is so smart that it's so complicated, right? You want somebody who can actually make it understandable and make it relatable for other people.
Yeah, that's actually really important. Well, thank you for your time and for answering my questions. I definitely learned a lot about
Good.
this.
I'm
Yeah.
glad and wish you good luck. And
Yeah.
of course, if you ever need anything else, you know where to find me and
Yeah.
all. But yeah, no, thank you so much for including me in this.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your time, and I also want to wish you good luck for your new job.
Thank you.
Yes.